Hello everybody, my name is Carl, this is Pow Bam Zing, and this is my full Titanfall 2 review. Let's talk about the campaign first. When it comes to a game's campaign characters, attention retention is vital. Titanfall 2 hits the mark, not because of the main protagonist, but because of his newfound friend BT. We watch BT learn and even gain a sense of humor through the relatively short campaign of about 4.5 hours. Titanfall 2 gives the character with the metal plate armor for skin and circuits for brains the most human connection with the player over anyone else, and that's a good thing. The man who we play is likable but somewhat forgettable and plays a backstage to BT's innocent one-liners and statements. Strangely, as a pilot to a Titan, you feel like BT is calling the shots more often than you are commanding him. And that's okay because he asks so nicely.
Welcome back, Cooper. Recommend we secure this area before proceeding with the repairs.
Other characters fade in and out without any real remorse when they inevitably perish or persist. Refreshingly, the game does not try to hover over people you don't care about by trying to overweight their death. Let's talk about the visuals. I liked him, and to be honest guys, I never saw any real issues when playing, but that might have been because I was too focused on surviving and not zooming in on weapons or walls to see what kind of textures dropped. Perhaps I should have been more careful. Either way, the game looked gorgeous whether I was inside the Titan or wall jumping from sky platform to sky platform. The early levels of the first planet reminded me of Halo and its mix of old stone structures and modern technology, along with ruins and grand scales of scenery. Big mountains, epic waterfalls, and tons of verticality made for a massive feeling landscape. You felt it most when you were a pilot and felt like an insect inside sections of levels made for Titans to walk through. Pretty cool. The quote-unquote mood of the scenery also matched the occasion. For example, when making the final assault on the enemy base at the end with all the Titans together, the scenery is dark and brooding. Planets and clouds hover in the sunset background and make even your Titan feel small. The story. It's pretty linear and predictable, but it's the characters who shine that make it memorable. You do things because someone on a radio or screen tells you to, and you do it pretty much without question. It's probably a tad of a shortcoming that it's so short and cliche, with some parts being downright cringy and cheesy. But then again, it is a story about giant robots with people controlling them in their stomachs, and their pilots who can magically run on walls. So let's give the story a break a little bit. Now let's talk about the gameplay. This has been one of the most seamless games I have ever played control-wise. Controls are active and responsive and rival Call of Duty controls. And there's nothing worse than a game that doesn't respond well or instantly and gets you killed because the guy isn't listening to the input the controls are giving him. This game never gives you that frustration. Everything is smooth and crisp. Anyways, it gives the game liberty to do some really cool stuff. For example, there's one level that allows you to contort time and switch between scenarios, sort of Portal-like. Definitely one of the coolest moments in the game. I was really impressed, and since the controls work so well, what could have been an incredibly frustrating level was an absolute joy. Some other levels place you in a fake neighborhood building facility that feels absolutely huge and terrifying and makes you work adequately hard to get through it. It makes you think hard enough to be challenged, but still light enough to have a good time. Great gameplay, and the characters were definitely the best part of the game's campaign. There were some oddly difficult parts that seemed a bit tough for the selected difficulty level, like a couple of the bosses that can take you out of the experience, but those are few and far between. Now let's talk about the multiplayer, the other half of the game. This game multiplayer-wise has been just a little bit of a mixed bag for me. While I enjoy it the majority of the time, for some reason it feels a bit crowded than some of the other similar titles of the games I played in its genre. Perhaps it's because I'm used to those styles of games, but there were times when I felt that I was pushing myself to play rather than enjoying the experience. Let me start off by saying that this game is super intense, high action all the time, and I love these kinds of games, and I've stated that many times before that I enjoy nothing more than some high octane fun of dashing, shooting, responding, and doing it all over again. But there's something about Titanfall 2 that's not the same as, well, let's just admit that most people, and for good reason, compare this game to Call of Duty. They are very similar, if not pretty darn the same, would it not be for the Titans. Adding giant mechanical monsters to a game that has remained the king of multiplayers for the past few years, which is Call of Duty, should feel like a great addition. And it really does most of the time. I found that while I was waiting for my Titan to spawn, I was like a helpless little ant in a land of giants with massive raid cans. Titans lose their novelty somewhat quickly, and it goes from nonchalant frustration to downright annoyance when you round another turn and a Titan blows you away without a second thought. I don't like my deaths to come that easily without some chance of retribution on my part. There's no way that a game like this can exist and be balanced perfectly. Games with just people firing at each other have a hard enough time to be balanced properly and sometimes never get it right. So to have a game with such extreme different players on the field can sometimes be exhausting when trying to complete an objective and getting stonewalled every time with no hope to progress without a Titan of your own. Sure, you can mount Titans and take their batteries and stuff, but it only does a moderate amount of damage before you are slaughtered again. Perhaps time will make me better at dodging and juking enemies' missiles, but the learning curve to evade a Titan's weapons might be pretty steep. The maps add plenty of vertical walls and platforms so that wall jumping and running is achievable, but I never really utilized that ability very much. Then again, I never used it in the previous titles that have come out with such either. I like my 2 feet on the ground. It can be a bit difficult thing to master, especially when under fire or shooting at others, but with a bit of practice I can see how that might give people the tactical advantage. It's something else that may make this game a bit more enjoyable given more game time. Game modes are fairly limited right now with basic team deathmatch, domination variants, and a weird bounty game that has you taking your kill cash to the banks at the end of each round. I didn't like that game type very much, mostly because I wasn't any good at it, and it just seemed a little clunky and awkward and kind of not good for my game flow. Whatever that means. However, I hear that DLC will be free for this game in the future, so it might be likely that they will add more to the 5 or 6. I think there's actually 8 game modes that are currently available. One such was Pilot vs. Pilot, which I was excited about playing, but after minutes of waiting for a match at a time, I gave up. Apparently no one wants to be without their Titan. Overall, playability was fun, and I had loads of awesome moments. I will certainly be returning to play more and rank up to see if I can squeeze every last ounce of fun out of this game. Shooting pilots out of midair with a thermite cannon was one, and stealing giant green batteries out of an enemy Titan is always satisfying. But the moments inside your Titan can be fleeting if you engage and battle heavily, and a bit stale if you attempt to elongate your Titan's precious non-regenerative health bar by avoiding direct combat. And the moment you're out of your Titan, which in a normal game I'd estimate is about 60 to 80% of the time, have you running scared, picking up objectives, and killing other enemy pilots along the way, while trying to avoid tough to destroy turrets, weird exploding tick things, NPC grunts and robots, and let us not forget the enemy Titans. Titanfall 2 has one of the most treacherous multiplayer environments I've played yet, which can be a haven for those who love chaos, like myself. It can just get a bit oversaturated at times. However, this game is still totally worth picking up and remains one of the best multiplayer experiences one can get today. Just perhaps maybe I'm too much of a critic, but I think that most of us can agree on one thing: it sure does beat this year's Call of Duty. So thanks for watching, guys, and have a wonderful day.